with our 30 man. But first, I want to start with filling you in and the updates on Eduardo Rodriguez. I know a question was asked of me yesterday, and talking with Eddie, he was okay with us being able to give you guys some things on what's going on with him. So, as with all our players that have tested positive for COVID, we have continued to monitor them, and with our medical staff. And in Eddie's case, they have discovered some minor complications with him. But because of it, we're taking everything very seriously in this matter. And we're going to shut Eddie down from baseball activities for a period of time. We're going to reevaluate him in a week to see where he's at. And like I said, it's a mild case, but it's still serious enough to where we feel like to do the right thing with our players and to take care of them. That this is a decision that our doctors and Chaim and his crew and all of us have come up with. So obviously it backs him off from being active and on the field and able to be part of our staff. And it's disappointing to him. Obviously, he came in here after going through the sickness and felt like he was going to be a full go, and now a setback. So that's what's going on there, and questions about it.
Ron, just to clarify, he hasn't tested positive again. He's just not feeling well.
He hasn't tested positive, and he feels okay. It's just during the process of going through the different things that these guys go through with the COVID, and this is from MLB, but also from our doctors, what they think is necessary for a player to come back and to be healthy and strong, and that we feel can be back on the field. So through that monitoring of what's going on with them, they've just discovered something that we need to make sure that we get rid of this completely, and before we have him back on the field.
Are you confident that he could pitch again this season?
Yes, I am. I think everybody is. So, we're always hopeful. There can be things that come up because this is a virus that really we don't know all about, and so everything we do is really new, and trying to figure out what the right things is to do, especially for our players.
Let's go over the roster and some of the decisions you guys had to make.
Yeah, so I talked about the last 2 days and how it's a difficult time for players and the staff to try to come up with with the pieces that we feel make the most sense for our club and will help us to win the most ball games. So the pitching staff was probably the toughest. I think the position players, I think was a little easier, knowing that Arauz was probably the one with being a Rule 5, and do you carry him? And he has showed not only progress from the first spring training, but a really good player. I mean, he's got, his tools are, to what we see, good hands, good footwork, good arm, accurate, switch hitter, being able to show a little more power than we thought. So that was probably the biggest decision there as far as, who made it from the position players. But the pitching staff obviously was tough. We know pretty much that we have the three guys with Nate and Martin, and then followed with Weber, that we felt good about. And now what do we do with, the starter for 4 and 5? And with the players that we had decisions on, whether we try to think about an opener, whether we try to think about a traditional starter for one of those games, is how we came up with really the rest of the roster. And that we haven't decided for sure how we're going to do it, because it depends on the matchups and who's being used. So I can't tell you that, a certain name is going to be the opener, a certain name is going to be the guy that comes in for him. because it really depends on what happens these first 3 games. We know what we would like to do, and we have a plan for that. But if the games don't go so well in the first 3, we may have to use players that we had planned to go 4 and 5. And so that's going to continue to change all the time. But we're confident. We're confident with the group that we put together. And that's, unfortunately, some hard decisions with some of the players.
Ron, just to clarify, for the 4 and 5 spots, do you envision one of those guys being less of an opener? Do you have someone in mind for kind of taking the 4th?
Yes, we do. We're thinking the fourth spot will kind of be an opener, and we're thinking more the 5th spot of starting somebody we do have in mind. But again, we may need him the 3rd game. We may need him the 4th game. We really don't know on that. But yes, that's kind of what we had planned.
Ron, specifically Johnson and Godley being left off, I assume you still consider those guys likely to contribute at some point, potentially soon?
Absolutely. So Godley, I think more the case of he just threw 3 innings. When's he going to be available? Can we stretch him out a little bit? And that's important. And I think the same thing with BJ is, he only got the 2 innings last night. We had actually planned to throw him, longer than that. And so it gives us the opportunity to have at least 2 or 3 starters in our taxi squad that we feel comfortable enough with. If something does go wrong, can we bring these guys back, and will they be stretched out? And it's important. I know they're disappointed, but it's important to have guys down there that are stretched out in a different environment than it would be if they were in a season in AAA, because we're still going to be playing not so much inter-squad games because we really don't have enough people, but it'll be simulated games, live BPs. And we have to make sure that we have those kind of arms that are backup for us, because we know we're not going to get through all this without making some changes.
Ron, how much do you feel for Eduardo, from the sense of this is just a strange and newness to everybody? And just watching him yesterday, he was just kind of sitting there talking to the trainers and things like that. How much do you feel for him trying to go through this and get through this as he watches his rest of his teammates open up this season?
Yeah, so no doubt we feel for him, and we need him too. I mean, and he knows it. So it's tough for him to not come back here and jump right in, especially after being through the tough time of sitting at home and not joining the team. He loved walking out there and just talking to the guys and being around them, for all these days since he's been back. And now with the news that we need to shut him down for a period of time is obviously rough on him. And the discussions we had with him yesterday with the medical staff again today have made it, difficult on him. But he knows that this is the right thing to do. He knows he's not like saying, "Oh, I don't think this is right, and I should be able to continue to do things." He knows it's serious enough that we're trying to take care of him. It is mild. He knows that. He's pretty confident in a period of time, and when we look at him again in a week, that he'll hopefully be over this, and we'll jump him right back in there. But he also knows the season is a lot shorter, and his time for making an impact on this team is going to be shorter. It's not going to be what he had hoped for.
Just to be clear, is this like a lingering effect from COVID, or is it a new discovery, something unrelated to that?
No, this is, it has to do with COVID, and it has come up with other people that do have this. And we're really hopeful that this is going to clear up in a short time.
Ron, do you think that you could make changes to the roster before the game tomorrow?
I don't foresee that. I think this is probably what we're going to open with. But I do foresee some changes probably that could happen in the first few days.
You think just in general that's going to be the case for a lot of the season, that there's going to be, a fair amount of going back and forth, especially with the pitchers?
I think it could be. I think, once we get into 2 weeks and we have to shrink that roster down to 28 and then shrink it down to 26 in another 2 weeks. I think there's going to be quite a bit of movement this year, not with just us, but with everybody. It's, the shrinking of rosters then all of a sudden puts the importance of especially your bullpen in question on how do you get by covering the innings that, at the beginning you should be able to with, we're starting with 15 pitchers, 15 regulars. And when that shrinks down, it's okay. Are we still able to cover all the innings? I know starters, you'll figure will get stronger and we'll be able to lengthen out more. But I still expect there to be movement.
Ron, how important is it you get off to a strong start?
Very important. That's why anytime we have news that that isn't so good, it's important. I think I've mentioned that, this second game of the season, I know we want these guys out there every day, but I also know, even though it's important, I know that we still have, 60 games to go through. I can't just put these guys out for 10 in a row, which is what it'll be before we have an off day. And some guys will have to have days off. And probably because of the night-day game, that second day, there's not going to be the same lineup as the first day. So the importance is there, but we still know we have to do it the right way.
How tough is that first 10 games for the Red Sox?
Yeah, well, it's obviously it's tough I think it'll be tough on everybody. So however we start this thing, to figure out who's in shape enough to go 9 innings consistently is a big question mark that I'm sure every team is looking at. And once we get past that and get people in shape, if guys are healthy, we'll try to keep the starters. We'll try to keep them out there as much as we can, and try to take care of them at the same time. So this is going to be interesting.
Ron, how much are you looking forward to getting up tomorrow morning and saying we finally get to play a game that counts? With all that you've gone through so far to get to this point, how much are you looking forward to, coming out and just being able to play a Major League Baseball game as manager of the Boston Red Sox?
Yes, that'll be very nice. With everything that we've gone through, it'll be really nice to just sit there, know you're playing 9 innings, know you've got one team to root for, you've got an opponent that you want to beat, and you're starting a season that hopefully goes really well.
Ron,
I guess Go ahead, Troy.
All right. Thanks, Sean. How much of an opportunity, Ron, is this for you and Chaim? Obviously, you want to win as many games as possible in a 60-game season, but to get a look at some young pitchers who will have a unique opportunity to start the season.
Oh, no doubt they will. And it's, we always, talk about, this is a tough time for me to go through and stuff. But I mean, think about what Chaim's been through. He's his first year as in the position that he is, and really BOH. I mean, even though BOH has been here his first year as GM, so we've all gone through a lot of tough things, and I'm sure other teams have too. It started quite a while ago for us, and so getting through this, getting to the point where we feel comfortable with the roster that we have. Even though we know that there's going to be some guys that continue to come back and change that roster. It'll be great to play that first game and on our way to hopefully a good season and get in the playoffs. And then we'll see. We'll see at that time, the teams that are hot, the teams that are healthy have a really good chance to do well in the playoffs.
Ron, do you have a timeline for Eddie once he comes back, or is it just like he's just completely shut down now and you guys will figure that out once he's back?
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. Obviously, there'll be more monitoring him with what's going on and making sure, just following on how his strength is, on what they continue to see with this. But like I said, it's so different than what we've seen before. You can treat it, I guess, like a flu, but we know it's different than a flu because it affects everybody differently. And because of the guys that are asymptomatic in this, it's just hard to believe that happens to some guys, maybe the same age, and all of a sudden it hits somebody else so hard. And that's why we have to really be careful with this. It's nothing to mess around with, as we've seen. And our concern for our players are more important than anything we do. We want to win as many ball games as we can, but our health of our players come first.
On how much of a factor were things like opt-out clauses and roster management, particularly when it came to putting the pitching staff together? And could some of those factors play into some changes in the coming days?
I don't know. I mean, obviously it has so far, but once we've come up with this roster that we have now, there's still a couple things that could happen like that. But I think we're pretty good on what we feel like. If we make changes, we know what pieces we have in place on that taxi squad to be able to replace whatever happens. Hopefully you won't have a major incident happen, especially with the COVID. But if that doesn't happen, we feel like we've got everything covered enough that we're able to, still bring in somebody that we're confident in that can fill a spot on our roster. And then we move forward through that, and there'll probably be some changes that happens with other teams. There'll probably be some other players out there that we feel strongly about, and maybe they end up on our roster, or maybe they end up in our taxi squad. We know that can change through the season.
Ron, just getting back to Eddie real quick. How far along in his progression was he before you guys decided to shut him down?
But really, he had thrown a couple bullpens. So the first one, I know he was exhausted at the end of that. I think he threw 20 or 22 pitches, and he was tired. The last one was better, so he got through that better. And the same thing that I know JT said the same thing. He was gassed after his first one, which was 20 pitches, and felt a lot better after his second one. And then we had Darwinson that threw and felt pretty good, but he was a little tired also. So that's why I think everybody's different with this, and that's why we have to keep treating them as individuals instead of just looking at them as a group. And this is what we do. We'll talk to them throughout this, all the way until hopefully they're able to be active on a roster.
Ron, I'm getting the sense from this that a 30-man roster wasn't any easier to select than 25 or 26. Could you take us into the tone of some of those discussions?
Yeah, you would think it would be easier, but it ended up being difficult also. I think a 25-man roster or 26 are a little different because you really need to be the fit needs to be perfect. On a 30-man roster, maybe it doesn't fit so well, but because you can make changes in this and because you're covered more, especially with the pitching staff, you've got, basically two extra pitchers that if it's not perfect, you still have arms to cover that. The position players, maybe if it's not perfect, you still have a couple extra guys that you can pitch hit in situations, because they're versatile, they can go play different positions. So that makes it easier that way. It just doesn't make it easier on the players individually that make it and don't make it.
Ron, you've obviously known Luke Roy a long time. What was that conversation like when you informed him that he had made it?
Yeah, it's always good. We've got history, and not just as a good player, but very quality guy. Cares not just about what he does, but cares a lot about the team. I know that was a big importance with him when had him in Milwaukee, was how can he help our pitching staff? And when you have players like that, you know what he can do to not just help him, what he can do individually, but how he can help the rest of the guys. And I know I'm very confident in him being able to help the pitching staff, being able to help our other two catchers. I hope they have conversations all the time on how all of them can get better. And I know it's an individual thing, and you care about your career personally, you care about what it does for your family. But when you have people that also know how important it is to, whether you're a mentor, whether you're just a great teammate, it makes a difference on your roster. So he's all of that. and it was nice, to start with him on the roster. And then we're going to have some tough decisions, not just with him, but with everybody when we have to shrink those rosters for to the 2-week period and then the month period.